Foreign companies are snapping up land across the country, millions of acres of farmland. But the U.S. government doesn't know exactly how much because thousands of acres are missing from the federal data.
You know, China's pretty smart. They said, look, we've got to have food security. How are we going to get there? We can't do it in our own country. Let's go buy up America.
The federal AFITA records appear to be missing significant acres of land.
I think that there's a capacity for the government to know what owns the land and who's investing.
Do you think we truly know how much land in this country is foreign owned?
No.
Simple answer.
Simple answer, yeah. Well, we don't.
The federal government has to change the way they're doing business. We're getting beat by almost every other country in the world.
Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. Welcome to Veracity. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Lying, stealing, bartering, whatever it takes to get the technology China has proven willing to do. This powerful statement is made by a US-based logistic and supply chain analyst, Ross Kennedy, who claims that the Chinese Communist Party is after the seeds of corn, kidney beans, soybeans, and other food-related products to destroy the US food exporting business that it managed to build for over centuries. These seeds are not generally found in the soil. They are trade secrets, a billion-dollar intellectual property innovated and created by US scientists that helped not only in taking care of the food security needs of America, but also helped in growing its economy by exporting worldwide. But the CCP wants to steal these valuable seeds to outgrow America. They're not interested in innovating themselves, but they are eagerly interested in stealing it. And the evidence is already showing its colors. In April 2022, Chinese national Zhang Haitao was sentenced by US federal court for attempting to steal an algorithm that helps farmers to increase their agricultural productivity. Zhang was a former imaging scientist at Monsanto firm in Missouri, which is a well-known agricultural biotechnology company that exported around $174 million worth of seeds to China in 2021. Zhang, who pleaded guilty for stealing these trade secrets for a Chinese research institute, was sentenced by US federal court for 29 months in prison and a fine of $150,000. And in 2018, two Chinese rice researchers were charged with stealing the rice production technology after they visited various US research and production facilities. The prosecutors found stolen rice seeds in their luggage at Honolulu airport when they were on their way back to China. They are now sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now the main question is, how would the CCP be able to damage the food security needs of America by stealing our valuable seeds? Well, according to Kennedy, if you can gather around 10 different varieties of seeds, you can actually manipulate the ingredients of those seeds as per your own needs. So the CCP can manipulate those seeds to adjust to their wetter environment and increase production. But if they want to decrease the productivity levels in America, they can do so by creating toxins in plants or creating weaknesses in certain types of bacteria or funguses that could massively destroy the US crops before they even reach the stage of providing sufficient food.
Some answers about what exactly was in those mysterious packages of seeds people around the country have been getting in the mail from China. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has so far identified 14 of the seeds and says they include flowering plants like morning glory, hibiscus, and roses. They say other packages contained herbs and even vegetables like cabbage. Anyone who receives an unsolicited package of seeds is urged not to plant them and to alert your state officials.
Furthermore, if the stealing of seeds does not help in destroying the food security of America, the CCP has now found a new way to corner the country by purchasing agricultural land. In 2013, a Chinese meat processor, Shanghai International Holdings, took over Virginia-based Smithfield Foods, which helped them grab a massive 146,000 acres of land spreading across 6 states.
According to the Department of Agriculture report, China owns nearly $2 billion worth of acreage and real estate.
So why is it important to soil China's buying power, they might ask?
Although lawmakers like Congressman Dan Newhouse, who after raising the alarm about this issue, have introduced legislation that bans foreign nationals from selling agricultural land to Beijing-based clients. The real question is it enough to secure our food security?
A move to push back against China's Uyghur abuse, U.S. President Joe Biden has signed a law virtually banning all imports from the Chinese region of Xinjiang. More than 1 million Uyghurs and other Turkic-speaking Muslims are incarcerated in Xinjiang camps. China is rooting out their Islamic cultural traditions and forcibly assimilating them into China's Han majority. Washington has described the campaign as genocide.
In a tough reply to the Chinese Communist Party for committing genocide and massive human rights violations against the Uyghur Muslims, the United States government has now banned the importation of all the products from Xinjiang province of China, where Uyghur Muslims are being forced to labor to help the Chinese economy, as around 84% of the world's cotton comes from the Xinjiang region. The Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act that now empowers this ban specifically states that all the industries, including the fashion industry, that imports products from that region are required to create a complete list of documents that prove that the raw materials engraved in their products are not one of forced labor. However, the Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Wang Wenbin responded to this legislation by calling it a big lie and arguing that the U.S. is doing it to disconnect CCP from the rest of the world. Well, if it is a big lie, then can you question this clear-cut evidence?
The recent reports of leaked photos narrate a shocking picture of the atrocities that the community faces. The United States has accused Beijing's highest-level authorities of being involved in what the West calls a genocide of Uyghurs, other Muslim communities, and Turkic-speaking people in the western region of Xinjiang.
These are the faces China never intended us to see from inside its system of mass incarceration in Xinjiang. The government has long denied it's running detention camps for Uyghurs, insisting instead they are vocational schools for willing students. The photos, almost 3,000 of them, show the reality of how whole swathes of Uyghur society have been swept up person by person. The oldest was 73 at the time of her detention, the youngest just 15.
Moving forward, according to Voice of America News, the U.S. Customs and Borders Protection also issued a pamphlet of guidelines to the businesses that talks about the ban on cotton, tomatoes, and polysilicon used in solar panels. Nevertheless, a mixed reaction is witnessed from the businesses that are still figuring out how to identify an ingredient as part of forced labor. Some are claiming that the supply chain is a complicated process through which it is extremely difficult to identify such forced labor ingredients because cotton from different sources tends to get mixed together during processing. While analysts, on the other hand, are claiming that tagging your products free from forced labor will help in generating more profit through the support of rising consumers that are strongly against human rights violations. Furthermore, Shemek Ghosh, chief executive of TrustTrace, has also come forward to support the businesses through blockchain technology. Ghosh stressed that several tech firms are now setting up blockchain systems that will help clothing brands provide a complete digital chain of custody for their cotton. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had this to say: "We are rallying our allies and partners to make global supply chains free from the use of forced labor, to speak out against atrocities in Xinjiang, and to join us in calling on the government of the People's Republic of China to immediately end atrocities and human rights abuses, including forced labor." According to South China Morning Post, even though the law targets only Xinjiang, there's been a domino effect on global supply chains, with shock waves rippling through China's economy, which is already facing multiple headwinds. Thus, the pain at a single cotton mill in southern Xinjiang is felt across China's entire textile industry. Luckily for countries other than the CCP, this law has given them the opportunity to increase their cotton production and meet the higher demand of the market, so that the world does not have to depend on Chinese products that are created from inhumane practices.
I immediately ran downstairs outside of my apartment, and I could see kids just laying on the street, people putting blankets over them, trying to attend to them, kids screaming on the sidewalks.
He leaned his head out the window to steer because there was a person on the windshield blocking his vision. It was like the SUV was trying to avoid vehicles, not people. There was no attempt made by the vehicle to stop. On November 21st, 2021, during a much-awaited Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the 40-year-old Daryl Brooks drove his SUV into the parade, killing 6 people and severely injuring 60 people. If you look closely at the words we just showed you, it clearly indicates that Brooks was completely aware of the inhumane act he was committing that day. However, Brooks, with the support of his defense lawyer, is now pleading that he is not guilty because he is mentally ill. Also, the defense lawyer requested the court to transfer this case outside of Waukesha to ensure that judges don't make an impartial decision after being influenced by the media. So according to the prosecutors and the video evidence, Brooks attacked people across 5 blocks. He has also been charged with 83 counts of crime related to the incident, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, each punishable by life in prison. So does this mean that by simply claiming you were insane while committing any serious crime, you should be acquitted of all these unacceptable acts? Not to forget, at first, Brooks claimed he's not guilty, and now all of a sudden, he's changing his defense to not guilty because he is mentally ill?
Brooks, a local rapper who calls himself Math Boy Fly, seen here in a music video, has a long criminal history. Earlier this month, Brooks was accused of using what appears to be the same vehicle to run over the mother of his child.
Nevertheless, Waukesha County Circuit Judge Jennifer Doro on Monday denied the request of the defense lawyer and stated, "There is no doubt in this court's mind that an impartial jury can and will be impaneled in Waukesha County."
U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that private religious schools cannot be excluded from a program that pays tuition for students in more rural areas of our state.
For almost 40 years, an unconstitutional law in Maine restricted parents from an essential student aid program if they decided to send their children to religious schools. The school districts in the state, without giving any reason, specifically denied tuition assistance to the students if they are studying in a religious school. However, after the discriminated parents filed a petition in the Supreme Court against the commissioner of Maine's Department of Education, the Supreme Court in Carson versus Macon have declared the law officially unconstitutional with a majority of 6-3. Surprisingly, the parents of a student who filed the suit in 2018 were denied their right by the High Court despite arguing that Maine's law clearly violated the Free Exercise Clause in the First Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment. The parents also referred to an earlier decision of the Supreme Court of Espinoza versus Montana Department of Revenue, where the Supreme Court declared that the state may not exclude families and schools from participating in a student aid program because of religious status of a school. But the High Court failed to support the parents in any manner. However, after filing an appeal to the Supreme Court, the court now only affirmed the Espinoza case, but also declared that Maine's law is a clear violation of the First and 14th Amendments.
The ruling is a victory for Amy Carson, who lives with her husband in Maine. They sent their daughter to the same religious high school they attended, Bangor Christian. They say it teaches values that are important in their lives.
It's an extension of how we raise her at the house. The beliefs that the school has are in line with what we have at the home.
Chief Justice John Roberts, who delivered the decision, said, "A state need not subsidize private education. We concluded, but once a state decides to do so, it cannot disqualify some private schools solely because they are religious. Neutral benefit program in which public funds flow to religious organizations through the independent choices of private benefit recipients does not offend the Establishment Clause." Michael Bindas, a senior attorney who represented the parents in the Supreme Court, said, "Parents have a constitutional right to choose such schools for their children. And the court today held that a state cannot deny them that choice in programs that allow for other private options." I'd like to thank you all for spending time with me. Now don't forget, watch this video up here and then join me tomorrow at the same time and we'll discuss more truths happening in America. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time.